It's 6 o'clock, so I think we can get started. I just want to first say thank you all so much again for joining us for this capacity building workshop. My name is Janae Hardy. I am the chief admin of the Black Fund of Central Texas, and I am so honored to serve in that role. Tonight, we're just going to have a wonderful presentation by Monique Parker, the executive director of Little Bit of Good. Little Bit of Good has been helping us with this capacity work. This is the second year in a row that we are doing this in this way, and we are so happy to be here. You're basically going to learn and hear just the best ways to get in the best application you can possibly get for this grant cycle. And I am going to go ahead and pass this over to Monique.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Janae, for the introduction, and good evening, y'all. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're doing well. Excited to host this webinar today. This is our second year now doing this for the Black Fund application. I love having this webinar, but even more so, I love the in-person event at the end of the month. So if you are available and will be interested in looking into some in-person application workshopping or application review. I can't wait to see you there. But we at Little Bit of Good really appreciate philanthropists, funders, and funding institutions who really strive to make the process more clear and the funding more accessible to Black-led organizations. And so always love the opportunity to help our leaders, our grant writers who are out here trying to access these funds, really demystify what the reviewers are looking for, but also what the applications are going over. So today it'll be less of more traditional kind of grant writing tips and tricks, but more specifically aligned to the Black Fund application, what they're asking in the application, and what the reviewers are going to be looking for. Um, I'm aiming for this to be around 45 minutes or so, and we'll also have time for Q&A at the end. But please don't hesitate to drop a question in the chat. You'll see me looking up because my slides are up here, but I do have the chat at the bottom. Janae and I will be monitoring that as we go. So feel free to drop questions there, or if you have a question that you want to ask live, please do come off of mute. This session is really supposed to be for you. So if there are questions that you want to ask that are specific to your organization or your application, you are absolutely welcome to ask those here. And if we don't have time, we'll talk about some other opportunities where you can get some one-to-one support to get those questions answered and in working on your application. So excited to get this started. So again, I am Monique Parker. I'm executive director of A Little Bit of Good. This month is our fifth birthday. We've been doing this for 5 years now, which is insane. We focus on capacity building, strategy, and consulting for Black-led nonprofit organizations. We also partner with funders and funding institutions so that they can be better about investing in the Black community specific and our Black-led nonprofit organizations. We know the work that you do. We value the work that you do. We recognize the barriers that philanthropy often puts in front of us. And so our job is really just to help you do whatever needs to be done to help your organization sustain, to help your leaders not get burnt out, and ultimately to build systems. I'm a big operations person. I value operational excellence. So when it comes to strategy, that's what I really enjoy working with organizations on. A Little Bit of Good does provide pro bono consulting support for Black-led nonprofit organizations. So if you have not worked with us before, we'd love to work with you. Our contact information will be in here and sent out afterwards. So definitely get in touch. Okay, so just an overview of tonight. We'll do some quick introductions in the chat. We'll talk a little bit more about the Black Fund of Central Texas and the funding opportunity, and then we'll spend some time going through each of the steps of the application itself. So again, feel free to unmute as we go. If any questions come up as we're going through this, I want this to be as relevant as it can be for your application as you're starting to write it. And then we'll go over some general kind of best practices and tips when it comes to writing your grant application. And again, save some time at the end for Q&A, but if not, we'll give you some minutes back tonight. So I would love to invite you all, though I see some names in the chat that I recognize, and hello, friends and new friends. But if y'all want to drop some of your information in the chat and just let us know who you are, the organization that you are with, or the organization that you're supporting with the grant application, and then also, what are you hoping to gain funding for? So, what are you submitting this application for? Is it to support operations? Do we need to pay for a new staff member? Is it to specifically support a new program? We'd love to know who you are and what you're building. Hello, Kimberly, NHT. Hello, Miss Sharonda. It's been too long. Got it. Grant writing and literacy. Love that. Awesome. Welcome, Francesca and Patricia. Well, great. We'll continue to let those populate. I'm always a fan of making family in the chat as well. So if you see someone that you connect with, or you identify or connect with their mission or their work, definitely reach out to them. Definitely an opportunity for collaboration and networking here in the room as well. So, just quickly, an overview of the Black Fund of Central Texas. So, the Black Fund is really made to strengthen and advance Black-led and Black-serving organizations here in Central Texas specifically. They really focus on funding, again, Black-led organizations or Black-serving programs here in the Central Texas region. And unlike a lot of funders, they support both emerging and established organizations. So this could be a new initiative that you're working on. This could be a 30-year-old nonprofit organization, and they support the gamut. They also support for-profit entities as well, so long as they have a fiscal sponsor, and there's some more information about that in the application. But the fund itself is really created in a way to be able to support as many nonprofits or as many Black serving initiatives as possible. So we'll see as we go through the application, the way that it's built out is supposed to be pretty low maintenance, requiring pretty low capacity, but that also means that we need to be very specific in how we're speaking to our work, how we're talking about our impact, and how we're making sure that what we're writing about is aligned with the specific funding areas of the Black Fund. The type of funding that the Black Fund supports is varied because it is unrestricted funding. Excuse my dogs if you can hear them. Someone just knocked at the door. But they do sustainability funding via staff members, new staff members, or program expansion. They also fund capacity. So if you need to hire on a consultant or additional support that will help to extend your programs, they're able to fund that as well. And just a quick note on restricted versus unrestricted funding in case this is new vocabulary. So, restricted funding is typically what we see out of traditional philanthropy. So, this is funding that has to be spent on very specific things, whether it's a program or a staff member. There are very specific parameters around what you're able to spend the funding on. The Black Fund grant is unrestricted. So, it puts the trust in the organization's hands to really identify what they need, how they want to utilize the funding, and it's not limited to your overhead or any of your operational funds, which means if you need this money to support a new staff member, or you're an executive director who hasn't been, taking a draw for any sort of salary, you are able to use portions of your funding to support operational funds as well. So we definitely appreciate the unrestricted portion of this grant focus here. And this will really come into play when we start talking about your budget, and then the optional budget narrative that you can include as well. So, some dates to keep in mind. Application just opened a week or so ago and will close on September 10th. In addition to this webinar today, the Black Fund of Central Texas is also going to be doing office hours. There's already a live link where you're able to go and sign up for office hours. I think I just checked it yesterday, and the remaining times we're doing the week of the 24th. So, even if you don't have anything written now, will be good to go in and book some time. They're in 20-minute increments. So you definitely want to make sure that you come prepared with the specific question that you need to have answered, or a draft of your application or things to go over. But highly, highly, highly suggest that you utilize that opportunity and go to those office hours. We will also be hosting the in-person grant writing workshop. So we'll spend a portion of the time kind of going over the grant application again. And then you'll also have the opportunity to work one-on-one with a consultant or mentor on your specific grant application before submission date on the 10th. The grants this year are ranging from $10,000 to $20,000. There is also the Committee's Choice Award grantee who has the option to be awarded $5,000. That also includes a year of capacity building training and resources as well. Even for applicants that are not selected for funding this round, receive capacity building opportunities throughout the next year. The goal is not to just, reject you and have you keep it moving and apply again next year. They offer the opportunity to get very specific feedback on your application, but also through the capacity that is provided during the following year, it's really a resource to help you be able to strengthen your application so that the next year after that, you're eligible. That was a little bit of good story. The first time that we applied for the Black Fund funding, we were rejected. We got that feedback. We answered to that feedback, and then we applied again the next year and were able to receive funding. So I definitely do recommend coming to the capacity building opportunities, but also joining in on those feedback opportunities that they'll offer. So, as we start to think about the application itself, before you even look at the application, start thinking about what you're going to write, I always recommend that you get organized with the basics of your organizational story. And this story is told in every application that you write. This is the story that we're telling in every piece of marketing collateral that you produce, in every pitch that you tell. So, in general, this should be a story that you're utilizing all the time. But before you begin working on your grant applications, you really want to make sure that you've nailed down a really clear and concise answer to each of these questions before you begin writing. It really helps when you're going back to review what you've written and make sure that it aligns with the rubric, that you're always making sure that every part of your narrative maps back to who you said you are, what you said you do, who you said you serve, and then shows the alignment specifically with the funder. So when it comes to who we are, this is talking about your mission. This is talking about some of your track record or any of the historic work that you've done either with the organization or that led up to joining or creating the organization. But this is really the part of the story where you get your credibility and you talk about, here's how I got into this work and here's what we've been doing. What we do really speaks to the more tangible outputs of your organization. So that's talking about how you actually serve. So this is, what are your services? What types of programs or initiatives do you run? How are you actually serving our community? You want to make sure in 2 to 3, no more than 3 sentences, you're able to answer that question. We do, we provide, we serve by da 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 da. These need to be very precise answers so that they're able to carry through every portion of your grant application. When it comes to the who we are section of this work, this is when we tend to get very verbose because we want to tell our background. We want to talk about our lived experience and really why we understand and identify this with this work, which is extremely important. But when it comes to a grant application, we want to make sure that our story is there to help support the work, but that we don't talk so much about our story that the actual plot is lost. And now the person reviewing the application is asking, is who we are your background and story, or is who we are what you're going to say your organization is and what your organization does? So I always recommend this as a good practice before you start writing, to see if you can go through and answer each of these questions in no more than 3 sentences before you begin your application. And then just keep this up in the corner as you begin to write so you can consistently reference back and bring
and
yourself
me
back
all the
to
practical
why
business
you
stuff.
serve, who you serve.
But then
Um,
next door, my
and
right.
then Sorry. And then, even more importantly, why is it aligned with this funder? And shortly, we'll talk a bit more about the different categories and how to make sure that you are choosing the right category for you for this application. I'm just going to scroll through the chat really quick to make sure there weren't any questions in here. But hello to everyone who's joined. Thank you for joining us this evening.
And,
Awesome. No questions so far. Oh, I'm writing.
and Monique, I just want to say this really quick. Anybody who just joined or recently joined, don't worry, this will be sent out in a recap, this recording.
Awesome. Ignore this writing on the screen. I don't know how that happened. I talked with my hands and must have clicked some button. Um, Another just set of considerations to think about as you move forward in your grant writing, but before you begin writing, is to look over all of the application sections in their entirety before you even begin drafting your application. Just make sure that you have everything that you're requesting. You've read through the rubric, you've read through all of the requirements, upload requirements, etc. It's also helpful in the grant portal. As soon as you log in, you're able to see a preview of the application. So before you even open up the application itself, you can get a preview of the grant, everything that it's going to ask, all the multiple choice answers. And so you can kind of utilize that to start working on your draft as opposed to drafting directly in the application itself. But that is also super helpful just to make sure that you have all the documentation that you need. For fiscal or folks who are utilizing fiscal sponsors, definitely give your fiscal sponsor the heads up as soon as possible that you'll be applying for this grant. They typically do ask for some information from the fiscal sponsor. So you want to make sure that they also have time to get you the documentation that you need. Um, Another thing to think about is that the application is the questions that they're asking, but the rubric is what your reviewers are going to be evaluating you on. So we're going to go through each of the questions, but the way that we answer is going to be based on what the rubric says they're looking for in each of these different sections. And I want you to make sure that whether you're utilizing AI or you're writing from scratch, you keep that rubric first and foremost. And again, as they said in the webinar last week, you want to make sure that you use that rubric like a checklist. The grant process can seem like it is kind of editing your work a little bit because there are character limits and word limits, and you're being told to get to the point and speak to the answer. But this is just so that the reviewers don't have the opportunity to guess about your work. If you had unlimited space to write about all of these different sections, some folks would take the unlimited space and it would give the reviewer too much opportunity to pick through what you wrote and try to find what their answer is. So, brevity and just being concise is definitely key when it comes to these applications. And again, just really making sure that you're showing alignment with the funding priorities themselves. Lastly, just making sure that you are very specific, but also honest in what you're talking about, honest in your narrative and the data that you are providing as well. And we'll talk a bit more, again, if you're utilizing AI, about ethical AI approaches. We'll also get into a little bit about how to use some external data if you're an organization that's not working with a lot of data. So we'll cover that too. But if you have any questions, again, please do feel free to drop those in the chat. So, the first section in the application is your eligibility and contact information. And so, this is going to be where it asks for a lot of your organizational information. It's talking about your 501(c)(3) documentation, potentially asking for some of your budget information. It's asking for your staff, demographics, etc. Making sure that you just, again, look at that preview, go through this section of the application to make sure that you have all the documentation. If you don't have the documentation, you still have the time to be able to reach out to whoever you need to make sure you get that in a timely manner before the application is due. But this is just where you're going to give the baseline info about your org, how you run, and your kind of administrative information. So if you have any questions about this information or find yourself unable to answer any of the questions, you can reach out to connect@theblackfund.org and they'll be able to help you more with those specific requirements. Again, you can also take advantage of the office hours. Janae, I do see a question in the chat about where we sign up for the office hours.
And really,
If you
oh,
want to
sorry.
drop the link. Oh, you're fine.
So sorry, really quick, just a correction to the email. I'm gonna put that in the chat. It's connect at the blackfundcentraltx.org. I'm gonna put that in the chat right now. And then as far as signing up for the office hours, I will be sending out a recap after this meeting, and it will have a link for you to sign up for office hours. And I'll also put it in the chat as well.
Perfect. So within this same section is where you're going to identify your specific impact area for this grant. And while this question is a drop down kind of multiple choice question, it is, I think, one of the most important questions on the application because it really aligns you with a specific impact area. And this area is where they're going to be evaluating whether your impact is truly working in that area. So I think the most common thing that happens with these impact areas is that sometimes in the work that we do or the programs that we host, it can fall into multiple different areas. And so it's really just choosing which area identifies the most with our work. Which area can we speak to the most? Which area do we have the most data to be able to support? Or can we can write the strongest narrative around? So when it comes to improving education, access, and outcomes, so you want to be specifically focused on education, whether that's K through 12, whether that's higher education, but you're talking about academics, education, educational outcomes. Does your program provide the pathway, or does your initiative enable more folks to gain or access education or leverage their education in a different way? But you want to make sure that the outcomes of your programming is specifically mapped back to educational access or outcomes if that is the bucket that you're aligning your work to. Healthcare and wellness, that can be a pretty big umbrella of various things, which is not a bad thing. So, thinking about healthcare and wellness being a huge overarching umbrella of different initiatives, different wellness priorities. There is, mental health and wellness, which I think is very necessary, but something that a lot of organizations are focusing on right now. But then we also think about physical health, we think about nutrition and education on nutrition. There are a lot of things that still feed into the health and wellness category that are not specific to our actual physical being, but the social determinants of our health as well. So just making sure that, again, whatever the outcomes of your programs or of your work is, can map back specifically to what this area is speaking to, what this area is talking about. I have seen some previous drafts where the organization will pick one area or answer to one specific area in this question. And then in some of their narrative, they'll write about how they cover all the different areas. And while it is great that you are touching multiple different areas, again, you want to focus on the chosen impact area that you designated, and you really want to drill into how your work is impacting the community, impacting resource availability, or services in that specific area. If you have any questions on that, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute anytime. So the next section after that is going to be your organizational overview. And there are two different questions in this section, but in general, this is where you start to tell the story of your organization. This is where you get into your why. This is when you get into the need for your work and the need for your resources, but you're also able to kind of paint a picture for how your work is going to be extended or more impactful because of this funding. So similar to the first activity, this can kind of feed into all of your grant responses as well. So good to go through and make sure you're able to describe these various things as you're working on your application. So when it comes to the why, this is where you're talking about the purpose and why you exist as an organization. Um, so when you are speaking to why, this is where you can talk more about your founder story. This is where you can bring in the need for the social service in this specific community. You can talk about deficits. You can talk about data. This is where you bring in those data points to really drill down why your organization is needed, necessary, why we exist, and why we are here. Then you move into the now, and that is going to speak more to your programming, your activities, and then also the community that you've served. So, this is where you're going to be able to contribute some of your outcomes numbers. This is where you're going to be able to talk about the number of folks that you've served, but you're also going to talk about the gap that is still being underserved. So, if you are working in an organization that feeds the community, the now will say, we feed the community 2 times a week. Here's how many pounds of food we've given out. Here's how many people come and engage with us on a weekly basis, etc. Even though we've been able to service in that way, this gap still exists. And now, which brings us to the vision, then you go forward and explaining, and with this funding, here's how we're going to be able to fill that gap, or here's how we're going to be able to work towards filling that gap or solving that issue area. So it really brings us into the problem and shows us how this funding is going to have a tangible impact on the way that you do your work, how many people you're able to serve, who and how you're able to serve as well. When it comes to your origin story, because you'll be asked about the origin story specifically and then the history of your organization. So, again, your origin story is going to include a lot about how your organization became to be. So, this is where we're going to talk about what you went through or experienced, or what you noticed if you are a founder or a leader of this organization. What brought you to creating this org. If you are an executive leader, staff member, volunteer who's writing this application, this is the section where you're going to talk about how this organization came to be. In 1999, so and so founded this organization because they saw XYZ. But the origin story is going to take us from the beginning, what the problem was in the beginning, and then it's going to show your growth over time up until now. So, this is where you can really kind of gloat a little bit and talk about the work that you've been doing, how you've been able to grow year over year, how the need for what you do has increased year over year. This is also where you can bring in external data if it is appropriate for what you're writing about. If there's other data that exists that says 50% of people who live in this area experience this specific thing, or 80% of males who participate in this type of program experience these outcomes. This is where you can really add that type of data to support more about your why. Although we're focusing on your origin story and how this organization came to be, you definitely want to end with why this is still relevant. Unfortunately, for some issue areas, why this still matters, why this resource is still necessary. So it's not enough to just tell the story of the evolution of your organization, but also to include the vision of why this is important. But if we keep doing this work, here's what the impact on community, society, etc. will be. So, some examples of what a good or bad response to this specific area could be. So, again, this is answering the origin story question in section two. So, a weak answer could sound like, our organization was founded in 2021 to support Black families in Central Texas. We saw a need for more resources and opportunities in the community, so we created programs focused on education, mentorship, and family support. Since then, we've continued to grow and serve more people each year. Technically, that doesn't sound bad, but if you really spend time with it, it doesn't necessarily tell the story of the organization, why the organization came to be, or why it's still important now. So, a better example, and maybe only one sentence or so longer, would be, our organization began in 2021 after our founders repeatedly heard the same concern from Black parents in East Austin. Their children needed trusted mentors and academic support, but families were struggling to find programs that felt culturally relevant, accessible, and rooted in their community. The first sentence of this example talks about when the organization started, but how it identified the need or the problem that it wanted to solve. So that is an excellent thing to kind of sandwich into that first two sentences is either how we identified that this was a need, or to show that we were asked or we experienced something that showed us that there was a need for this thing to be, but really proving how we got to this place. And even better if we can show that it was a community led or community initiated program or system, rather than, I moved to East Austin in 2021. I saw this thing. I thought that this would be a good solution, so I built it. That's not necessarily a high earning question in terms of the rubric or a high scoring answer, but really to show community demonstrated need as well in talking about your origin story is always a great approach to that question. Then it goes into, we started as an informal weekend mentoring with 12 students, and then we grew. So it's starting to talk about the evolution of the organization, but also how the organization has grown. The number of folks that the organization has serving has grown over time as well. And then it moves to talk about why they exist. So we exist to address the gaps in academic support, mentorship, and opportunity that continue to affect the Black youth in Central Texas. And then it goes into the how by creating programs designed alongside the families and young people we serve. So, where you could just say, we started in this year, We saw a need for more resources, and so this is what we do. This response does give a bit more color, a bit more detail into your why, but also brings the reviewer or gets them started on a journey to better understand the real need for what you do or what your organization does. So, as you go through writing your application, you want to keep in mind or keep your reviewer in mind as they read through your application questions or as they look at your video submission. You want to make sure that you're taking them on a story, that they understand what is happening and why. Again, being clear and concise with your storytelling. But again, if this person knew nothing about your organization, knew nothing about the community it served, what is the information that you would need to provide? Some tips on mission statement. I'm assuming that most of you have your mission statement written already, but if not, or if you're looking to update it or anything like that, some tips for you here. And just making sure that it's clear, it's specific, and it's authentic. So it should be in your voice, it should speak to your organization and what your organization does. And it doesn't need to be long. Best mission statements, in my opinion, are two, no more than three sentences, but it just tells a very concise story of who you are, what you do, and why. Avoiding really broad language or any jargon that folks wouldn't understand if they didn't work in your industry or they didn't, service your same community or live in your same community. And you don't have to say everything at once. So there will be opportunities where telling your full story is appropriate or parts of your story is appropriate. But in that mission statement, you just want to get to the core of what you do and why you do it and how you do it. A question in the chat: should we state the university's mission statement or one that suits the particular program we want to create? I'll answer first, and then Janae or any of the Black Fund representatives definitely jump in. I would say I would combine a mixture of the two things. So if you could write 1 to 2 sentences about the university or pull some of the general sentences about the university into the mission statement, and then attach a second piece that talks about, from these learnings, or give us a sentence that describes how this program came to be. So, based on our work in this area or our high enrollment of this specific community of students, we recognize the need for this program. The mission of this program is to da 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 da. So, you get the credibility of the university and having that included in the mission statement. But now we also understand the mission of this specific program, because sometimes with university work, the program mission is not relevant or aligned at all to the university's mission as a whole. So I would recommend kind of putting them both together, but focusing on the program mission.
And what I would say is because typically, like the way that the application starts on the portal is it'll ask you for org information. So if it asks you for like specifically your org information, then you would put the mission of your org. So similar to kind of like what Monique is saying as well, like if you're if you're applying with the university's name and you're just filling out just that first little portion, I would go with the mission statement of, like I said, of the university or the org that you're applying for. Does that make sense? Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Great question. I got the drawings off my screen. Hallelujah. That was going to bother me forever. We will send out these slides so you'll have a clean deck of this as well. I also tend to make my slides a bit more wordy so you're able to use them without the recording. So please do utilize these. There's a lot of great examples in here and also prompts as we get to the end. I am going to speed it up now that I have looked at the time because I want to make sure that we get to some of the higher weighted rubric areas. These are just some examples of mission statements that you can utilize if you are in a place of just writing your mission statement, or if you're thinking about updating your mission statement at all. You can utilize some of these as a starting point or a guide. 3-minute video. It is optional. I always suggest that you do it. It's another way for the reviewer to be able to get to know you, to get to know your application. If you are someone who doesn't have a lot of confidence in grant writing, or felt like you didn't have enough space to really talk about your program or your story adequately, then this is a super great opportunity to be able to get more time, but also knowing that you have 3 minutes, and that there are still specific questions that they're asking for that video. But I highly, highly, highly suggest it. If you are going to submit a video, obviously make sure that there's good lighting, good audio, so that everything goes through clearly. I do believe that they have an upload requirement, so make sure that you look at the application for that in case you need to, I think, upload it on YouTube or something like that. But just make sure that you know the requirements around it. And then in that video, take the time to rehearse. You don't necessarily need to be reading off of a script. However, if that makes you more comfortable, please do utilize whatever you need. But make sure that you go through it first, whether you go through it just in the mirror or you bring a friend into the living room and you go through 3 minutes of what you're going to say. Practicing within that 3 minute time period is really, really important, so that you make sure that you're hitting your key points and you don't have to re-record and re-record and re-record a million times. I'm not a good editor, so I did just have to re-record in its totality and then send the best one. But again, recommend that you kind of go through what you're wanting to talk about. But don't skip the video if you have the ability or the capacity to submit one. I think it's an excellent addition to any application, and especially this one, since it is shorter, you have less space to really tell your story or speak to the impact of your work. So, again, just another opportunity to add a bit more detail, a little bit more color into your work.
And I also
Yeah,
just want to say too, sorry, Monique,
you're
don't
fine.
feel like you have to do a whole lot of like production for this. Like keep it simple, keep it to the 3 minutes. Like don't feel like you're limited. Like just set up that iPhone and tell us your story.
Absolutely. Question in the chat regarding the mission statement. Is there a starting point for category arts, culture, and preservation? I'm not sure I understand the question. If you could reword in the chat and then we'll work on an answer.
I think it's because I don't think you had an example for that on the screen. That's what.
Oh, apologies. Yes, I have the rubric pulled up here. And in terms of, let me see. Actually, I have the rubric, not the application. But Janae, yes, that is included in the impact areas, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So is
Um,
that just okay?
the next question is, does your funding program work with religious organizations? Janae, correct me if I'm wrong. I do know that they work with religious organizations, but what program you submit for does have to be secular and inclusive, correct?
It has to be secular and inclusive and yes. So you have to serve the community at large.
All right. And then someone says Houston doesn't qualify for this grant, but are they still able to be a reviewer?
Do you mean like you live in Houston? Is that what you're saying?
I will leave it
Okay.
to the admin of the Queen's Foundation to clarify, and then Janae can help you more in the chat.
Yes, we
Perfect.
serve Houston, but this Central Texas, so it's like the Austin area. But I saw y'all were still looking for grant reviewers as well, right?
Yes. So you're saying you are here in Central Texas. Yes, you can go ahead and
No, I'm in Houston.
oh. Let me get back to you on that question, but you can, if you do want to sign up, by all means, please sign up and I can get back to you on that question.
Perfect. So, one of the heaviest weighted sections based on the rubric is going to be the questions that fall under your work and impact. This is where you're really going to drill into the work that your organization does and its specific impact or potential impact on the community. And that's where the data comes in. If you are an organization that's active, that has been serving, this is the time where you can really talk about how you've worked with the community, your service numbers, your outcome numbers. If you were any of the organizations that we worked on the St. David's grant with, this is completely opposite, where we want to know about how many folks have you served, what is your historical work within the community, and again, the more tangible impact. So this is where you are able to do a bit more storytelling when it comes to who and how you serve and what the change has been because of your work. This section, I would absolutely recommend that you really slow down and spend the most time because this is really going to map back to your impact area and really showing your alignment with the funding opportunity. So it's going to talk about your current work, how you've been doing that work, but it's also going to bring your reviewer into what is going to change or what is going to be enabled now because you've received this funding. So now your organization is going to be able to sustain, which means you're going to be able to double the amount of people that you serve next year. Or, because of this funding, you're now going to be able to implement this new technology that's going to help you get to a different place. But you really want to also be able to show how these funds are going to help bolster your mission, your work, your staffing, etc. So, your project description, this is where you're going to talk about your initiatives or the core programs and services within your organization. This is going to talk about your outcomes or your day-to-day deliverables. So, thinking about, and you will have already answered a lot of this if you did the first activity. So, you can just pull from that. But this is talking about what you do, it's getting specific about how you deliver your service. So I see a lot of organizations get lost in this space when we're talking about what we do because we talk about literally what we do. I clothe people, I house people, I help with capacity building, I do resource navigation, etc. But we don't get enough details and information on how those services are actually delivered. So we want to hear more about, do we have, folks out in the community connecting people with these resources? Are we actively, showing up in schools to offer mentorship, et cetera, et cetera? But they want to know the specific path that you take to actually do this work, to be able to really understand the full story. So definitely don't skim over how you do the work while you're talking about what you're doing. You're going to bring in who you serve. If you can get specific about who you serve. So, a lot of the times we'll see organizations say, we serve the Black community, we serve the youth. But is there a specific community within those communities that you're serving? Is there, if you are serving youth, are we serving, youth who are of the high school age? Are we serving youth of a specific demographic or background or social situation or identity? But if we're able to get really specific about who we serve, that's when we can also pull in more data to support why our work is necessary. I don't know how this keeps happening. Clear all the drawings. But this is where we can talk about again why our work is necessary. And then the community impact. So this is if you are an established organization or you've been doing work for a year or 2 years and you can start to show some measurable impact or some measurable changes without your work. this is also the place where you're going to talk about those things. So as you write your grant application, come back to this slide and then rate your writing based on if it answered all of these questions. If it was able to answer all of these questions, make sure that it's in alignment with the rubric, and then you're good to go. But if you're able to answer clearly what we do, how we do it, who we serve, and why, then you're in a really good space when it comes to your program description and answering what the reviewers are looking for. So, again, continuously coming back to speaking to what the reviewers are looking for as you write. Quick question in the chat. I'm wondering if I qualify. I'm an Austin-based filmmaker. A grant submission is for a program. It's a film series. You have a fiscal sponsor. Janae, do you want to answer that in the chat?
Yes, I'm answering that right now. But
Awesome.
I mean, I can answer it right here. So it says, um, I have a fiscal sponsor. So yes, as long as you have a fiscal sponsor and the program is something that, or the program or project is something that is benefiting the Central Texas community at large, then you are able to apply. It says the fiscal sponsor is non-Black led. Everyone involved in the project, as long as the people that are putting on the project and are involved in the project are predominantly Black, you're good.
Hey Janae, this is Rocky. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That person's here because of me, so now that's the second of our team that thinks that they should go through. So I think we're good on.
Yes.
Awesome. So this is just an example here that you can utilize when you're writing to your program question. I won't read through now, but you can utilize this to kind of see the difference between the detail in a response that could get high scores on the rubric versus a response that may get a weaker scoring or grading. So, historical context, and with this portion of the application, it actually has two different rubric sections. So, you're going to get 10 points for community history and trust, and then you have 5 points for meaningful collaboration. So, when it comes to historical context, I don't want you to get lost in thinking that they're asking about the history of your organization again, because that is not what's being asked there. They are asking more about why you began. So they want to see evidence that you're working with the community, you have close ties to the community, you are trusted by the community, in that a lot of your or all of your work is done in close proximity to or even initiated by the community. So this is going to be an area of the application where you're really talking more about your more historical roots in community. You're talking about collaborations or other organizations or entities that you're working with. You're demonstrating kind of your evolution over time if you're an org that's been around for a little bit. So, not how your organization got started, but really your evolution or the evolution of your work in this specific community, since Central Texas is what the Black Fund is funding. So just a tip there to make sure the origin story question asks about your organizational history. Historical context is going to be leaning more into your work in the community. And if you're an emerging organization or if you're a fiscally sponsored organization, maybe you're going to talk about your collaboration or your work with other entities that do have deep ties or deep roots in the community as well. Again, as you write, you want to make sure that you have your rubric pulled up next to you so that you're able to see the specific questions that the reviewer is going to be looking at when they're reading through your application. So, with this, when it comes to history in the community, the question that they're looking to answer is that you're demonstrating existing trust. You understand the needs and accessibility within the Black community of Central Texas. So again, not your origin story, but how are you deeply connected with the community here so that we know that your work is truly relevant or truly necessary because you have an ear or an arm around the community. All right. And again, another example here that you can utilize that kind of demonstrates a weak answer versus a strong answer. The DEI section is going to be a lot of information on your staff, your board, demographics. Again, just like section one, you want to go through this early. You want to make sure you have all the documentation, all the correct data and information to be able to speak to these answers. Although this section and section number one are really just a lot of data input, they are weighted on the rubric. So, based on the information that you submit, there are different scores that you can get based off of the diversity of your board or your organization, who you serve, your leadership demographics, etc. So, you don't just want to put any numbers in there. You want to make sure that they are your honest numbers and information. The fund is not not including anyone or marking anyone down based off of the information that they provide. But you do just want to make sure that you give all of the necessary information and as accurate as you possibly can. For this application, they do include a budget template that I suggest you utilize. It's a really simple template here where you're going to list out this is not your organizational budget. This is just the budget for the specific program that you're applying for. If you need any help kind of scoping out a program or a project budget, definitely reach out. This is an area we can help support you in. But I want you to know, most importantly, because this funding only goes up to 20K, your program can go beyond that amount of money. You just need to be able to show which of your line items is going to be covered by the Black Fund of Central Texas funding. So you want to be honest in what the cost of this programming is going to be, and then also show how the Black Fund is going to help contribute towards this. I will say, I wouldn't necessarily put forth a project budget or a program budget that was $200,000. You're asking for $20,000 from the Black Fund, and you're unable to demonstrate where the rest of the funding is going to go. As a reviewer, they may mark you down for that because the budget doesn't appear as realistic if you're not able to say, and here's how we're going to get this other funding so that this program can actually be lifted. So they do have a budget narrative section, which again, I recommend that you utilize. You can utilize this just to talk through some of your line items. This section can be utilized to talk about any specific line items that might be bigger or seem inflated, just so you can provide an explanation for them. But also, if you are proposing a budget that is larger or significantly larger than what the actual funding is, the budget narrative is a space for you to be able to speak to the other funding sources that you have coming in so you can show that you do have a plan or a well-rounded kind of strategy for how we're going to get this program off the ground. Will budget allow for indirect costs? I would imagine yes, because unrestricted, but Janae, please do correct me.
Okay, so the budget, I was actually entering that in here. The budget should only include the cost for this specific project.
Some tips again for budget best practices. And Kimberly, if you have more questions on the budget, connect at theblackfund.org and they will be able to support those. Some other best practices that you can utilize. Again, we've talked about these, just avoiding overinflating your costs. Make sure that you're really clear with all of your line items and that the budget makes sense for the program that you're talking about. That's the biggest thing, making sure that the budget aligns with the narrative in your actual grant application. Lastly, because I know that people are utilizing AI, And because I review a lot of grant proposals, I recognize that AI is writing a lot of your collateral and a lot of your documents and a lot of your grant applications the same. But it's because we're not spending enough time prompting our AI, we're not spending enough time really working with the outputs that AI is giving. So just very quickly, ethical use cases, you can use it to draft your responses, of course. Do not copy and paste whatever AI is putting out to you without at minimum interrogating it, going through, multiple versions. AI can take something that would normally take you 8 hours and maybe it's now going to take you 3 or 4. It's not supposed to be an instant solve. And especially if you really care about this funding, I would really spend some time with your AI. I've included some prompts in here that you can utilize for various things, including reviewing your drafts against the rubric, better understanding the rubric, or providing you more tips in terms of what to write to. So we are realistic. We use AI. It's a great tool, but there are some better ways that we can leverage it to help us get to the funding, but also have really good writing that is authentic to us and our organizations as well. If you want to nerd out over AI, again, oh, I'm so sorry, the Black Fund at centraltexas.org, the official name. But please do reach out to us a little bit of good. We also have some great referrals and resources of people that are even better at AI and custom GPTs. So let us know. Any quick questions? We are now 1 minute over time. So those of you who need to drop off, you are greatly appreciated, and I thank you for being here. Some additional resources are available. But if there are any other questions, I'm happy to take those. Feel free to hop off mute. I'm seeing Monet.
Hi. So my organization, we were founded last December. So a lot of the questions or a lot of your answers were like so like the work that you've already done, et cetera, et cetera. What would you recommend for a new organization? Would you like us to talk more about the dream, talk more about our vision, and talk more about like where this fund could take us?
Yes, for emerging organizations, I'd say your best bet is to talk about how you identified this need. So, this is where you can bring in if it's your lived experience, if it's I was working in corporate in this position, saw this inequity, so we're doing this. But you're going to want to talk more about how you identified the need. And then, because you are a new organization and you don't have service data yet, you're going to pull external data and if you can, local data that supports your work. So if you are a mental health organization, maybe you're going to be talking about mental health rates here in Austin or in Central Texas. Or if you are working with, youth males, youth Black males with mental health, then you're going to talk about how the existence of mentors, increase the chances of kids staying in school or something like that. But you're going to pull together the need, but also what the outcome is going to be because of what you're going to do. So just more data, utilizing more data if you're an up and coming organization, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
really have appreciated this whole, it's like a master class. It feels like an open book test.
Well, call us, girl. We want to help you. And the Black Fund said we could. So reach out.
Yes, and please don't forget to sign up for office hours because those will be really integral in you writing your application and just asking the questions you need to ask. I would recommend starting your application, maybe starting a little draft and maybe having that for your office hours so you can ask specific questions. And sooner than later, I would say.
Um, quick question in the chat. We have to be operating for a year to qualify, correct? I think that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, a year in operation.
Can I ask
Uh,
a question?
sure. Hi, Audrey.
Um, Hi, how are y'all? What
Good.
is Central Texas? What do y'all? Could y'all continue to say Central Texas? What is Central Texas? What's the cities or the boundaries or whatever? What is Central Texas to you all?
I'll let Janae handle that one for the Black Fund of Central Texas.
Oh, yes. Okay, so the counties that can apply are Travis, Bastrop, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, and Williamson. That
Okay,
is
so Central Texas is basically Austin because I live in Midland, Texas, so I wouldn't qualify for y'all funding.
no, not if you don't fall in those specific counties.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Hello, this is Rocky again. Can I speak to the people that are calling in from other locations just really briefly about collaborations just before we get off of here? Because I feel like that keeps coming up.
Absolutely.
My name is Rocky Lane. I was born in Houston, and I was able to kind of build coalition forces as I started to move in and relocate to Austin. And now I operate as a completely national and global leader, operating specifically in trans and queer advancements and power building. I'm a multiple recipient of this award. The way that I was able to support the people that are all across Texas as a statewide leader was to build coalition forces with people operating currently. If you don't have a 501c3, find Austin leaders that are currently not interested in the Black Fund but want to get money in their pockets and form a coalition. Austin really wants people coming in from places like the East Texas regions to try very hard to work with East Texas folks, like the El Paso regions. That's where your resources have gone. But if you are out of resources out there, you have got to call us, come in and talk to us, talk to the grant leads, and build coalitions. We cannot stress this enough. The Austin leaders are really stressed out by multiple organizations coming in with redundancies. We need y'all to coordinate and cooperate. If you do food and you need extra cash, the food, lots of people with 501c3s just need good organizations working in the county regions. We have plenty of people that are willing to talk you through this to find your organizational support, but y'all got to start working with the leaders in Austin. We have one of everything in Austin and a lot of nonprofits working. Y'all got to start, please, please, please listen to the grant leads. We are telling y'all we have built coalitions with each other. That's how we were able to unlock these funds. You will work better not competing against other Texans. You will work better coming into Central Texas with an idea that boosts something that is doing well for Black Texas. I promise y'all, we are ready for y'all. I love Midland, and I come from a deep Texas roots, so I know we are not all trying to live in the city. I hate the traffic in Austin. Y'all don't understand. I've moved all over this country. Please, please, please listen to me. You can sit with me. I will show you the people that are doing a similar work. I will personally connect you with somebody who's going to at least give you a legitimate answer. They're not going to move y'all around and tell y'all that you don't matter. You matter. We will find you collaborators. Austin is ready. Black Austin is ready. And I really want y'all to hear me because I hear Houston calling in. I hear Midland calling in. I see Dallas calling in. I heard people ask me this FAQ. We promise we will find you a link. If you think that you got something for this money, we're going to unlock this money as best we can. Stick with us. And that's the end of my what I got to say because I'm not trying to keep y'all, man. I just don't want anybody to waste their time and just turn their ears off because this money is going to keep cycling for years. We can get y'all some money. Okay, if y'all have questions, I have office hours. That's all I got to say. I'll yield the floor.
Awesome. Any other questions? Rocky, they're asking for your contact info.
My office hours have to be pretty strict right now, so they are listed, and my contact info will go through Janae. You can book with me through Janae. I'm not gonna put my stuff in the thing because y'all gonna blow me up. I know it already. I love y'all. I'll take care of you, and then I'll book extra hours as we need them. Okay, I got y'all, but I'm already listed with Janae. That is our chief admin. You must go through Janae. I think if Janae, I hope that's okay, Janae. But I'm moving right now, so I can't do all the.
No, that's absolutely fine. Again, I'm going to send out the office hours link in a recap, but I am gonna put just so you can maybe see where he's at. I'm gonna put his specific ones on here so you know what to book if you're wanting to talk to him specifically.
Hello, I have a quick question. I put it in the chat earlier, but I wanted to see if I might be able to get it answered. I was curious: are do Black-led university student organizations qualify for this grant as well? Sorry for the noise in the background. So Black-led university student organizations, would they qualify as well?
Is the organization being hosted by the university or are they their own 501c3?
Hosted by the university.
So the grant application would be fiscally sponsored by the university?
Well, I suppose that would be an option. I hadn't seen it that way, but I suppose so. Yes.
Got it. Janae, I'll I'll answer and then you tell me, but I'm assuming so the student-led organization couldn't apply alone. It would need a fiscal sponsor, an existing or established nonprofit to in order to apply to the grant. So it could be the university and the money would go through the university and then the university would pay out to the student-led organization or the student-led organization would become its own 501. I don't know that there's enough time for that between now and the 10th. Or you could become fiscally sponsored through an external organization through the community, but I don't believe they'd be able to apply as a standalone. But please, Black Fund of Central Texas, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. And also because obviously like the university they could apply and then they could fiscally sponsor it. That would honestly have to be something that you talk to with the university and just see like what could happen there. But yes, what Monique said is typically how that would go.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course, good luck. Any other questions before we hop?
Yes, I have a question. I see that the counties that's qualified is Travis and Bastrop and Burnett, and usually central counties count Bell and Coryell, and I provide services in both Travis County as well as Bell and Coryell. Would qualify as because I'm serving in different counties, one of the counties being not outside of what you all are using as a qualifier?
Yes, you would still qualify because you do serve in Travis County. And there will be questions, specifically around like, you know, how much, like what's your demographic, like what's your percentage, how much do you serve in each particular county? So,
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Miss Sharonda Robinson.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, ladies. Really appreciate y'all putting this together, and it's been great to share space with everyone else on the call. I really appreciated what Rocky said about the collaboration and the need to collaborate, and I definitely agree with that. I'm wondering if there's a way that the Fund can help facilitate the potential. I'm seeing in this group folks that I didn't know about or groups that are working in areas that we have strategic priorities around that we might want to, if not collaborate on this particular grant, collaborate in the future. And so is there a way that the Black Fund can help facilitate those connections? That's all we do at Black Leaders Collective is make those connections. So just curious about that.
okay, so we can't necessarily pair organizations together because then that kind of brings in a little bit of like a conflict of interest. We can't like
Yeah,
necessarily.
I'm not asking for pairing. I think, Janae, thank you for that. I think I'm asking for what other ways you can potentially facilitate. Can you share information? Can you put mixers together? Are there things that you guys can do to help us connect with other folks around collaboration?
Oh, absolutely. We
Yeah.
usually every year we have two community forums. That's where a lot of that happens. Um, and honestly, things like this, like we always encourage people like to drop their information in the chat. A lot of times that's how people find each other, but our community forums are usually the best times for people to do that.
I also think too, Sharonda, the consortiums within BLC could be a even better starting point for collaborative funding applications because we're already housed in
Sure.
issue areas.
Yeah.
It could just be a structure that we add in the consortium meetings.
Okay. Okay. We would definitely be up for that. Because I see a lot of good, I don't like this word because we overuse it, but I see a lot of opportunities for synergy.
Yeah. Oh, Rocky agrees. Okay.
All right. Well, let us know how we can support then.
Also, Black Fun, call us. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, or if there are any more questions, feel free to reach out to the Black Fund of Central Texas. Connect at the blackfundofcentraltexas.org. If you need any technical writing assistance or want to go over the rubric, we can't do grant writing, but we can help you with your grant review. So please do reach out to a little bit of good. Again, we have the upcoming event on Saturday, the 29th. Will be at the Black Fund Central Texas office. So RSVP for that event. We'll have some advisors there to support. And again, the link for office hours has been shared a few times in the meeting chat. And the information is in there specifically if you're looking for Rocky as well. But please do sign up for those to get your additional support, and wish you all the best. I appreciate you spending this time on your Tuesday evening. And I hope y'all stay well.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that y'all know when y'all get onto the office hours, it's not going to necessarily say somebody's name. You just need to book for the times that I just put in the chat if you want to specifically speak to Rocky. And I'll echo what Monique said. We are so happy to have you. I'm taking a picture of everyone because we want to just commemorate this. We're so happy that you decided to join us today, and we love all of you, and we can't wait to see you in this grant cycle.